This is Tony Randall as Felix. This is Jack Klugman as Oscar. They're getting together this fall in a new series called The Odd Couple.
Well, that certainly sounds interesting.
Heavy, heavy, heavy.
A moving story about the compatibility gap between two bachelors who share an apartment.
Sensational.
This is what is known as a casual fun set. Jerry Paris is directing this episode.
Far out.
From the day you brought him, he's taken over the house.
What about my bird?
Stop him.
Why don't you just tell them to watch The Odd Couple?
You know, I'm beginning to like this bird.
Sitcom All Ye Faithful, a Christmas podcast special, where again I discuss 25 Christmas sitcom episodes. Please come and listen every day until Christmas. I'm sure we'll feature Balky, Gilligan, and Young Webster, Rose Nyland, Eric Foreman, and definitely Mork. We'll definitely talk about Mork.
Happy holidays, happy holidays. Booby-dooby-doo, everybody, and welcome back to year 2 of Sitcom All Ye Faithful. Are you ready for another 25-day podcast extravaganza? Well, I hope you are, because today, day 1, we're ready to watch so many Christmas sitcoms. And today, for this first episode, I had to do kind of take a left turn, because all year I decided that I'm going to start this year of Sitcom All Ye Faithful, and every year with the same show. Not the same episode, because that's against the rules that I made up. The same show. And then, without doing any research, I thought this is a great idea. And then I did some research to discover that the Brady Bunch only had one Christmas episode. I was like, that can't be right. Wasn't there an episode with a house of cards and a canoe? But I realized that's not a Christmas episode. I think they were trying to get stamps or something for some stupid reason. I was I was disappointed that my little plan wouldn't work. So I thought a couple days ago, well, I need to come up with a first show. Do I do a show I haven't done before? Because here are the rules. You can't repeat the same show during a year, but you can do the same show, next year. So in other words, let's say I did a Cheers episode last year. There's a good chance I'll probably do a Cheers episode this year. The closest I got to being, cheating on my own little rules was the Newhart and the Bob Newhart show. Same actor, different show. See, it falls in the guidelines that I've created in my head. So I thought to myself, do I do a show that I haven't done before? Because I know there's going to be repeats. Do I start with a repeat? Do I go with something big? Do I go with something classic? Do I go with something that's more niche? Something that's kind of like 80s, 90s guilty pleasure that isn't really considered, a classic sitcom. And I thought, no. I've got to go with a classic, and I've got to go with a show, an episode, a show that I never talked about before, and really a show that I never really watched much of. The Odd Couple, to me, was a show you'd see on syndication growing up on different stations, but I never really sat down and watched it. I knew a little bit. I knew Oscar Madison. I knew Felix Unger. I knew Slob. I knew, Knee Freak. Bachelors, both divorced. So I probably have seen an episode here or there through the years. And I knew that, is it Al Molinaro? Am I getting it wrong? Al from Happy Days. I knew he was in it, and I knew he was Murray the cop. I've heard of the Pigeon Sisters before. They weren't in this episode. The other characters in this episode, they were like the group of friends. None of them looked familiar. None of their names looked familiar. And it seems like they weren't long for the show. So the Odd Couple, obviously the Odd Couple was originally a Neil Simon play. Then it was a movie with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. Then this was the first iteration of it being a TV series. Then there was an 80s version called the new Odd Couple with Ron Glass and I can't think of Sanford and Son's name, but the son of Sanford and Son. It only lasted for a season, but that was, and then there was the reboot with Matthew Perry and Thomas Lennon that I didn't watch a moment of. But the original two shows, the 70s and the 80s one, were both produced by the great Gary Marshall. And in the promo at the beginning, it talked about Jerry Paris directing the episode they were filming. Jerry Paris, a longtime Happy Days director. Of course, Gary Marshall is like one of his greatest achievements for me is bringing Happy Days into my life. And much like Happy Days, this show had a change from the first season to the second season. So when I watched this episode, this is the 12th episode of the first season. It's called Scrooge Gets an Oscar. And I found it on an article. I saw some pictures of, it looked like Tony Randall dressed as one of the Marley, the ghost of Marley, and Jack Klugman dressed as Scrooge. I said, okay, this is a good one to watch. Classic show, classic characters, and looks like they're aping the Scrooge, much like we saw with the Family Ties last year, right? Family Ties wasn't It's a Wonderful Life. It was Scrooge, if I'm correct. It's been a year. So anyway, I went, it's on Paramount Plus. It looks like the whole series is on there. So it was very easy to find, very easy to watch. And a couple things I wasn't expecting was I thought I'd recognize more of the secondary characters. And I mentioned already, I didn't. And I also wasn't expecting the style the show was shot in, which was single camera. That's what they call it. Single camera, where it's filmed like a movie. There's no audience. And it's very much like the first season of Happy Days. And I thought, I've seen clips of the show if I haven't seen episodes. And I was like, I didn't think The Odd Couple looked like this. I thought it was more your traditional kind of sitcom of the 80s and 70s where, filmed in front of a live studio audience and kind of almost put on more like a play with cameras. And it turns out after the first season, they changed to that format, much like Happy Days did. Again, Gary Marshall, Jerry Paris, just very similar, just kind of those things in common. It seems like they, if I read it right, ABC wanted it filmed this way to match kind of the movie, where Gary Marshall wanted to do it more like the multi-camera shoot with an audience, which if Wikipedia is correct in what I read, it is, because I'm not going back to look, whatever, that Klugman and Randall also liked that they changed to that other format. And I wonder if they kind of dropped some of the friends and added Murray the Cop to be in more. But anyway, this episode, I have to say, it was okay. Like, I didn't love it. I didn't think, oh, wow, this is a classic. Like, when I watched some of these, some of the episodes last year, I knew there were some I loved. I knew there were some that were memorable, but I also knew there were some that were considered classics. And you watch them and you go, oh, okay, it makes sense. Now I see why. And this just didn't feel that way for me. Now, mind you, maybe I watched some of the best ones already last year, so I wonder if this year I'm not going to be getting as many great ones. But I don't want to say I was let down. I was just underwhelmed. What a way to kick off Sitcom All Ye Faithful out of the box saying, this was okay. It wasn't great. Like, there wasn't many laugh out loud moments. And I felt like just Jack Klugman, Oscar, was mean. He was just sometimes just mean for no reason, just being a jerk. Now, it turns to find out that he just found out that his wife wasn't getting remarried. So I wonder if that's an ongoing joke where he thinks his wife's going to get remarried so he doesn't have to pay alimony anymore, and she doesn't. And when they got originally married was on Christmas Day, and of course now they're divorced. So there were some interesting things in there that made you chuckle, but it was, again, shot different. There was laughter. There was a laugh track, but it was canned. It was completely fake. Even when they do it in front of a live studio audience or film to look like it's in front of a live studio audience, you can suspend disbelief enough to think, okay, there's, the laughter is where the people are seeing this. But when it's filmed like a movie, all these different angles and one camera kind of, like a movie, hearing a laugh track takes you out of it even more. But the premise of the episode is Felix and his friends, all their friends, are putting on a stage play of A Christmas Carol, and for, I don't know, an orphanage or for kids or some kids. They're putting it on for some kids for charity. And they think Oscar would be the perfect Scrooge. And of course, he doesn't want it to be a Scrooge. He doesn't want to be a Scrooge at all. And it gets to the point where he kicks Felix out of the house. He's tired of him. Now, I'm looking at this, 40 something years later, where if you're looking at this in the first season of 12 episodes, they just started living together, a couple months ago, basically in the timeline of the show. So maybe early on he tried to kick him out a lot, and he just second guessing things and overthinking things. But he wants Tony Randall to completely, he wants Felix out of the house. And Felix is like, fine, I won't, where I'm not wanted, I won't go. We get kind of a fun moment is when all the friends are sitting around they're kind of practicing. What's the word? When they're rehearsing. That's the word. And they're trying to read from A Christmas Carol. and none of them are very good at it. Like, and Murray the cop is like, he tries to sound mean, but he can't. He's like, there's just not a mean bone in my body. And Felix is like, I know, Murray, I know. And then Felix thinks, he's like, I'm going to read it because I'm an actor. But even his reading isn't really that good. And they realize that the only person who could do this is Felix Unger. Now, is Oscar Madison. Now, Felix is all over, has been after Oscar about how he eats and how it's going to kick up his ulcer. And of course, Oscar falls asleep, and I'm sure I'm getting their names mixed up, but Oscar falls asleep while a showing of A Christmas Carol is on the TV, and he has a classic Christmas Carol dream where he has long hair, and Tony Randall shows up as the Bob Cratchit. And there is kind of a funny thing where he says, show up, let's go out this window and I'll show you Christmas past. But he's like, you can't go up here. We're 12 floors up. And Felix as as Jacob Marley goes out the window and falls right down. And he's like, I told you. And then the next shot, he comes back as the ghost, but he's got a sling, which I thought that was a funny little thing, a little gag. So he brings Oscar to kind of see, this is, a condensed version of Christmas Past. Shows him at a desk, and he got a crummy toy from his parents. Now he is dressed like, I don't know, like a little kid from the 1920s, which I guess or 10s. I don't know. He's got like the long hair, but like shorts and the knee-high socks. It's really like something out of a cartoon where you'd see this kid, licking a giant lollipop or something like Baby Huey wore. But he got a terrible toy, and that's why he hates Christmas. Then it showed Christmas Present, where I think it was the play was being put on, and all the friends. What the hell was going on there? All the friends. Oh, they were trying to do the play. And Murray was Tiny Tim, and he just kept saying, God blesses everyone. And it was, he just kept saying it over and over again. I think that was what was going on. And then the future, they just showed here is a messy gravesite of Oscar Madison. He wakes up, and Felix is there to clean out a few things. And he's like, wait, I want to be Scrooge. I want to do this. This is how it should be. He's like, really? Come on, let's go. They go outside. All their friends are dressed up, and he's like, oh my God, it's Tiny Tim. He's like, no, this is Felix. This is Murray the cop. It's your friend. Oh, great. Let's go do the play. And then the episode ends. Well, there's a little stinger at the end where they get each other a gift. Actually, it was kind of funny. He got Felix a gift certificate for a humidifier for cleaner air, and Felix was so happy. And Felix got him a tiny trash can with his initials on it. So, all in all, it was definitely Christmas themed. It was quick, kind of rushed, as far as throwing all the Christmas Carol stuff. And Oscar was like so mean, didn't want to deal with anything with Christmas. He's picking up the chips and throwing it around like he was having a temper tantrum. And in the end, he has a dream and becomes, like Scrooge, happy the next day. And he thinks he had the dream because of all the food he ate. But either way, it worked, and now he's Scrooge in the play, which we don't see the play. We don't see a moment of the play. I thought, okay, we get to see him do a few lines. Nope, nothing. So that was it. That was Oscar. Scrooge gets an Oscar. And all in all, this was, December? I think it was December something. I wrote it down. It was 1970, 6 years before I was birthed. All in all, not my favorite. I have a feeling it'll go up from there. But what's fun about the Jack Klugman and Tony Randall is that they were kind of linked for, the show went from 70 to 75, but they were linked together for years after that. And back in 1993, they did a movie. Was it The Odd Couple Again, or The Odd Couple, Back for More? I know that's not what it's called. But they did an Odd Couple movie in the early 90s. And and I don't know if Murray the Cop was in that, but some of the actors, Penny Marshall was in it because she was in some episodes, and some of the friends, at least one of the friends was there, a couple of the friends. But they also were connected because they did a bunch of commercials together. I don't know if they did it for a bunch of different products, but I knew them mostly from doing these snack commercials together.
I'm about to ask a real video freak which will score more points, Eagle's new nacho cheese tortilla chips or the other leading brand. Jack? You're not paying attention to me, Jack. Now you have to try the other leading brand. Jack, I know you like Eagles better, but you have to try them both, you geek. Will you pay attention to me? Don't let this happen to you. New Eagle nacho cheese. You're gonna love them.
Okay, so you only heard Tony Randall's voice in that commercial, but Jack Klugman was there, and the cool thing about that is Jack Klugman is playing Duck Hunt on Nintendo, the original Nintendo Entertainment System. And the whole thing is, will he, what's better, the Doritos or the Eagle brand chips? And they do a bunch of Eagle things. I think there were peanuts. There was a commercial with that. And just the fact seeing Jack Klugman playing Nintendo with the red zapper. This was from 1991. So those guys have been linked kind of together for eternity, even though they didn't, Jack went on to be Quincy, right? Quincy was definitely after, wasn't it? And Tony Randall went on to, have babies in his 80s. But I think that's it. I think I'm done here. I think we've covered day 1 of 25 of the Christmas season. I got my Christmas tree up. All the decorations are in. And I have to say, October, we get 31 days of kind of following, getting into Halloween. That's the way I do it. Thanksgiving, I don't really think of like Thanksgiving season. I think of Thanksgiving as kind of you're getting ready for Christmas. You're not quite in the Christmas season yet. Maybe the week of Thanksgiving, you start to feel it. Then Thanksgiving's over and you start to, really pick up. You get the decorations out. You put the lights up, the trees up. I haven't watched any Christmas specials yet or any Christmas movies yet. But now that it's December, I'm going to be watching a lot of Christmas sitcoms. And now I really feel in the swing of things to start watching Christmas things. Because, with Halloween, you get 31 days. With Christmas, you only get 25. I mean, obviously, you get more if you count Thanksgiving, or you really just do whatever you want because no one's watching, no one cares. You decide when your Christmas season begins and ends. And even after Christmas, up until New Year's, we'll have the lights on. Maybe we won't be watching Christmas specials. Maybe we won't be listening to Christmas music, but the lights will still be on. But yes, it's full Christmas music now. I shouldn't say full Christmas music, but now I'll put on Christmas music and won't say, oh, it's too early. I will listen to it. And I hope you will listen to less Christmas music and more Sitcom All Ye Faithful. Now, you can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Geek Mentality. Twitter's still a thing. Hasn't gone away. I did sign up for that Mastodon thing. I don't know why, or, I was thinking, is Twitter going to go away? I better grab this very important, very, very valuable name of Geek Mentality before it's taken. So I do have a Mastodon at Geek Mentality, but that's probably the first and last time you're going to hear me reference it, even though there is a link to it if you are on the webpage at fansnotexperts.com. On any of the show notes, you can see there's a link to it. But most importantly, you can find me on Twitter at Geek Mentality. That is probably the place where I interact the most, even though I am putting up every picture of every episode on Instagram, again, at Geek Mentality. The website is fansnotexperts.com/sitcom. That's where you will find every episode of Sitcom All Ye Faithful, which really is just the Geek Mentality podcast. So if you go to fansnotexperts.com/Geek Mentality or /sitcom, they'll both get you to this show. We're available, of course, any place you can get a podcast and 13 secret places you can't get a podcast. I'm not going to tell you what those are. You have to figure them out yourselves by following the clues in the map that I left under your chair. Now, this is when I start realizing that I'm rambling too much. So, until tomorrow, my friends, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. And I haven't said this in a while, but let me get it out right here. We go. Here is my theme song. This is my podcast. I made it. Geek Mentality is what I named it. And I think you should listen and subscribe, 'cause I'm kinda funny and awesome. I think that I'm worth your time, and I'm kinda handsome. My mom says, please listen and please subscribe. At least listen to this episode.
Fast, not experts.